Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is another week in review. Game news, all that stuff, what I played, schedule for the week, and things I played last week, and all of that. And timestamps as usual down below, as well as links to anything I talk about. This is a fairly light week as far as new games or things like that. I think it's just, we're heading into the holiday season. Things are coming down to a close. Also, a random note, if you happen to see any movement over here or any clickety noises, my daughter's playing Fall Guys over on the computer, and I just gave her headphones and told her to go for it, because I'm doing this video and I didn't want to say no. So, that said, let's go ahead and jump on into this. So, starting off the bat, 25th Century Games, who make a whole lot of games, Kohaku, Tutankhamun, a whole bunch of games like that, they are doing Rawr. Rawr is coming out with a reprint from 25th Century Games, art by Ian O'Toole, looks fantastic, and I got rid of Rawr. I did. I love Rawr. To be very clear, I think Rawr is excellent. Rawr and Tigers and Euphrates are two games I've had in my collection for a very long time that eventually I moved on from. But just time to swap it out for newer games and things. They're fantastic games. I will admit, I will be tempted to pick this up. I do not yet know if I will, but I certainly will be tempted. It's a fantastic game. There's whenever I do my games leaving the collection videos, there's always a few games that I question if I'm making the wrong decision on. This top is wobbling. So, that is basically Rawr. Then we have Star Trek Super Skill Pinball, basically Super Skill Pinball, which is a roll and write game. They're coming out with a Star Trek version, so if you're interested in that, you can check that out. Additionally, we have a few apps, app-based news. We have Dinosaur Island Rawr and Write announced an app integration, so that will take place of the scoring, the tracking things. You'll still need the dice and some of the other elements, but it'll track a lot of things for you. So if you're interested in that, if you want to play Dinosaur Island Rawr and Write, if you have the game and you want the app integration, you can check that out. As well as that, we have Evolution Climate is coming out with an app. I think Evolution already has been an app for a while. They're coming out with the Climate expansion integrated into the app. So if you've been playing Evolution on the App Store, you'll have a chance to buy that and check that out. I've been trying it out, and I'll be picking up. Evolution's a game I used to have in my collection a long time ago. I got rid of it without ever trying Climate. Having tried, and I liked it. I just, one of those games that I had for a year or two, and then it moved on. Climate actually has me intrigued to pick it up again, because Climate adds a lot of mechanics to the Evolution game, managing the climate, the weather, as you might imagine. But also, it gives your characters 4 traits instead of 3, which is already more comboing, more things to go for. Part of that's because of the fact that there's these weather-related traits that you'll have in your creatures as you go through the survival of the fittest game. But of course, you don't have to do a weather trait. You could just have 4 traits on your creature. I like Evolution, and having played Climate on the app, I'm enjoying it more with Climate. So I'll be giving that a shot and trying to get that back in my collection. From there we have some less game news related things. I mean, still game news, just less board game specific. We have Dark Souls RPG. So, Steamforged Games, who do a bunch of RPG games, as well as doing a bunch of board games, they're coming out with a Dark Souls RPG. So, I don't know what that means, practically speaking, past the fact that it'll be a Dark Souls-themed RPG. I don't really do RPGs, so, it's going to be that. That's a thing. Past that, and more board game news that I know more about, also from Steamforged, we have Resident Evil they open up the PM, the Pledge Manager, but they also have some add-ons that are available, so if you are following the campaign, and it's always annoying when this happens. I personally do not like it when, well, that's a little more complicated. I generally do not like it when campaigns add stuff in the Pledge Manager that weren't there during the campaign. It's hard enough following all the campaigns as it is. It's even harder trying to be like, okay, great, so I backed the pledge over here, and now you're saying I have to be mindful of all the things you potentially added in the PM. I don't love it as a concept. I think that at the very least, if they're going to do it, they should literally have a clear step-by-step guide of everything as clear as possible. It should be almost an intro video. Like when you hop into the PM for the first time, it should be here's a little video of all the things you need to know, because it's been 2 months or maybe 2 weeks or whatever it is since you backed our game, and here are the things that have changed, that have updated, here are the new pledge levels. I want there to be a guide whenever campaigns do this. I've done it a few times myself. I've done some of these guides on larger campaigns, specifically because of that, but I can't do it on all the campaigns, so yeah, I wish they had those guides or something available. From there, moving on from there, we have Megaman the board game, which is our upcoming review later today. Megaman Adventures, more specifically. But I had a video, okay, so let's take a step back. Sorry, I'm getting all over the place. Megaman Adventures is a review that will be coming up later today. We'll talk about that later. But additionally, I have an online gameplay of Megaman Adventures where I'm playing with One Stop Co-op Shop and Jeremy Howard, going through the game. That was our first dive into the experience. We did that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I just forgot to talk about it, so I'll link to that down below in case you want to see that. Give me 1 second while I tap my daughter on the shoulder because she's making noises. There we go. She heard me. Perfect. Okay. From there, we have, lastly, in terms of other things or content creators, ThinkerThemer introduced some merch. So if you're looking for a mug, oh, I forgot my mug. I have my mug upstairs. Oh, well, too late now. I have my ThinkerThemer mug upstairs. Forgot to bring it downstairs because I wasn't having coffee right now. But ThinkerThemer has merch in case you want that, a mug or shirts or whatever it is, in case you are interested in any of that. Let me go ahead and give that a spin. So that is everything to do with news and stuff. Like I said, a fairly light week, not a ton to go over. From there into the topic of the week. The topic of the week is the fact that a massive purge is coming to my collection. I'm not saying what games are leaving, not yet, but I am doing, not like, oh hey, games leaving the collection, I'm doing a massive purge of the games in my collection. I'll talk about it more likely in a dedicated video. I haven't really fully gone through what I am or am not doing regarding this massive purge. What I do know is that I'm trying to think through the way to cover this topic. Okay, a long time ago, I did a video on how to keep a lean collection. Now, the point of that video was never, ever to say you shouldn't have X number of board games. First of all, do what you want. But it wasn't about, oh, you should only have 50 games. It was never about that. It was about the idea of you should only have games you're playing. And there's a whole bunch of step-by-step things of like different things that I keep in mind when I'm trying to figure out how to have an appropriately sized collection for the games I'm playing. And I was thinking to myself that I want to redo that video, because it's one of the first videos I had that did very well. That and Marvel United were my first two videos that crossed like 3,000 views on the channel when I first like had nothing, when I had like 1,000 subscribers, and none of my videos crossed the 3,000 views. So I wanted to redo that video. I wanted to do it again, and I realized that if I were doing that video again, I'm not following a lot of my own rules. I'm not like keeping a lean collection anymore. I've gotten caught up in, well, board games and hype, and I'm not against turning things around. I'm still not against the concept of getting things in, trying them, enjoying them, and moving them on. I'm all for that. I always have been. I would say I always will be, but I don't know if that's true. I am right now. That's good enough for me. But the rules I would have as far as keeping games that you're playing or trying to keep games that you will play, I'm not currently subscribing to my own set of rules around what I would say. And so I decided to try following my own rules. And so I'll probably be, at some point, I don't know exactly when, might be a few months from now, I'll probably be doing a follow-up video. How to keep a lean collection part 2, or whatever it is, or just a redoing of that video. It's an old video. It's got all the bad audio quality and video quality and all that kind of things. I'm like sitting back in my chair by my computer. I'm just like kind of talking to the camera. Like I'm being like, oh, well, you should do, this, and it's one of my first videos. It's one of my first videos, and it shows. It is aged appropriately. And so I want to redo that video, but first I want to make sure I'm following what I would say in that video. Does that mean I'm getting rid of games I want to keep? Absolutely it does. It does, 100% yes. But to me it's never been about keeping games. It's always been about playing games. I'm only interested in games in so much as I am getting them played. A game that is on your shelf looking pretty is not a game that is doing you any favors. And I would say, I would take it a step further. I am a firm believer in the idea that too many games, especially too many games you're not playing, can actually inhibit your ability to play the games you love. You have too many sets of rules floating around your head. You have too much choice about, I need to play this, I need to play that, I need to play that. That's getting in the way of the games you know you love. I'm not playing fewer games. I might play fewer games, I don't know, we'll see yet. But I'm not making any drastic changes to the way I play games as a result of this. It's almost the other way around. Because of the way I play games, I'm making drastic changes to the way I keep games, if that makes sense. So I don't have a firm collection. I don't have a firm answer as far as timelines, but I plan on doing a video about how to keep a lean collection, and I plan on doing a massive purge, probably in a dedicated video, about the games I got rid of in order to follow my own rules. And again, for me, the number one criteria is that I play games. So I'm getting rid of things that are not getting played, and I'm getting rid of some fantastic games. And I'm not saying names yet because things might change. But what I will say is, I'm not making decisions yet. What I'm currently doing right now, in the process of going around my room, this basement over here, I'm grabbing games off the shelf that I think fall into the category of games that are getting in the way of me playing games, and I'm slowly putting them in a giant, slowly growing pile on the floor. It is several Calyx cubbies full of games at the moment, and I think that pile is only going to grow larger the more things go on. None of them are currently leaving. They're all getting a grace period, a fictional grace period of, do I feel enough sadness that I'm willing to commit to the fact that I'll play it? And for the most part, so far, they've been sitting here for a few days, so far they haven't. Now, you may notice some things, even just on the shelves behind me, that might give you hints as to what's on the floor. Not everything that's missing here is a hint. Sometimes it's just rearranging, because a big part of this is me rearranging my general collection, my general basement. So we'll see what happens. But I want to see which things trigger, you know, which things spark joy. Con Marie, as I look at them, what sparks joy? What makes me regret the idea of getting rid of it? Versus what am I realizing that as I put it away, that it's almost taking a load off my shoulders. Now, a big part of this is focused on accessibility. A big part of this is focused on which games... There's two main criteria, I think, in terms of the games I play versus not. One is games that I like versus games that I love. That's the first criteria. Games that I like are a dime a dozen. Games that I love are less frequent. And so when I'm sitting there trying to figure out what to play, I can choose that game I like, but more often than not, I'm going to choose the game I love instead. So the game I like, doesn't matter that I like it, it doesn't get played. The second criteria are games that have a high barrier of accessibility. A high barrier of, I like you a lot, but because of the commitment involved in playing you, I don't pull you out and play you. And that's one of those little, like, graphs of, you know, the better a game is, and the better the game is, the lower the accessibility, the more likely I am to play it. So as a game gets better, I'm more likely to play it. As a game gets accessible, I'm more likely to play it. So if a game has a high barrier to accessibility, it has to be that good before I'm able to play it. It's a bit of a graph situation as far as whether I play the games. And so some games that are not accessible are staying. Some games that have barriers, some campaign games are staying. As far as backing future games, I mean, I did a video at one point, like 20 campaign games I backed that I'm going to have a problem with. A lot of those are not going to make the cut. A lot of those are games that I believe I will try out, because I like trying things. I like the experience of trying a game, of seeing whether it's a fit for me or not. But whether or not it stays is a different conversation. And I think a lot of things are going away. So that's basically this topic of the week. A massive purge is coming. Hopefully a reset to the games I love and the games I will get played, as opposed to the games I think I will get played. And I'm not saying I won't get these back either. Part of the video I plan on doing, the games leaving the collection, not games leaving the collection, part of the video I plan on doing on how to keep a lean collection covers the fact that getting rid of a game so that you can get it back when it's time to play it, there's nothing wrong with that. If you hold on to games forever because what if, then you'll hold on to a lot of games that you'll never get back. If you get rid of games forever, knowing full well you can get them back, then you can get them back down the road, and that's fine. You'll get rid of 50 games, and you'll get back 4. That's fine. I'm fine with that math and the way it actually works out for having a manageable life around where you keep your games, how you play your games, and all of that. So, that is that, which brings us to the what I played. As usual, I have not logged my plays for the past few days, so I will be going through these in order and then trying to simply remember after. So let's scroll back, Okay, here we go. So we have Kids Chronicles Quest for the Moonstones. I'll actually have an upcoming review of that with Ricky today. We have more Yummy Yummy Monster Tummy. I've just been going through a bunch of kids games with my kids, having fun playing them. We have Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, which I'm still going through with Ricky. We have Rolling Realms, still having fun playing that. I finally finished the full play of it. We have Radlands, Hadrian's Wall. Radlands I did a review of last week. Really enjoyed that one. Have been diving into it. Hadrian's Wall, still playing that with my wife. We have the Search for Plan X. Search for Plan X is a game that I've been playing both solo and with my wife, and I need to play it with somebody else as well, but I hope to have a review coming up this past week. I just want to get in a bunch of plays, both solo, both with the standard and the expert mode, and get in a variety of plays with it, but we'll be talking about that more. We have Rage More. I got in a play of Rage More from Button Shy Games. I saw somebody talking about how much they liked it, so I picked it up. I didn't love it. I didn't love it at all. It's a solo game. I like a lot of Button Shy's offerings. Rage More is one that I will not be keeping. I will actually probably be covering it in a semi-review. I plan on doing a roundup of Button Shy games that I own and just talking about them. Rage More is going to be at the bottom of that list. Then we have Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game. I had another opportunity to dive into it. I'm still liking it. Still the same complaints I had before. I need to, well, you don't necessarily know the complaints I had. I'll be covering the Horizon Zero Dawn board game at some point in more detail. For right now, just know that I'm a few games in and have been enjoying it while having a lot of complaints around it. But it's fun. It has powers and abilities. It has leveling up your characters. It has all those things. It just has a lot of things that I understand why there are complaints about. We have The Key from Haba Games. Fantastic game series. Hope to have a review of that up with Ricky at some point. We've been diving into both they come in 2 difficulty modes in terms of the games, so there's different games. I think there's 3 total games, 2 easy, 1 medium. We've been diving into both the easy and the medium so that we can talk about the difficulty scaling of the system. Really solid game system from Haba. Like it a lot. We have Unlock Secret Adventures. I got to play, Unlock the Adventures of Oz more specifically. Got to play that one with my niece and my daughter. That one was one of my less favorite Unlock games in terms of the Unlock series. I found it to be less intuitive compared to some of the other games in the genre, but I still enjoyed it. We have Seven Wonders Architects. Gotten a bunch of plays of Seven Wonders Architects this past week while I was visiting my family. A really solid game, but also I reviewed it earlier this week. I think it's a solid game. It's just not that impressive at the same time. Gotten a bunch of plays of The Crew, Mission Deep Sea. I have played the original The Crew, but I managed to finally get some plays of Mission Deep Sea. I'll have a review of it at some point, maybe with The Crew, maybe not. I haven't decided, because I actually haven't done a review of The Crew. Short version is I like both. I think if I had to keep one, I would keep Mission Deep Sea, but it's more complicated than that. That's not that much. I think if I had to keep one, I would keep Mission Deep Sea, but I do like the original Crew as well, and I think there's room for both in my collection. We have Rush Out. Gotten a bunch of plays of Rush Out with my kids. Rush Out is a game from Sit Down Games, who make Magic Maze, who make Pachamama, and that one's really solid. It's a real-time element, but it's kind of like an overlord system, one player versus many, as you go through this real-time rolling dice and assigning them. It's light, it's stupid, it's fun, it has a sense of escalation as you slowly unlock new things. Really enjoying that one. I'm sure we'll have a review of it once we've gone through enough of the game. Wild Space. Gotten a bunch of plays of Wild Space. I did a review earlier this week already of that one, but Wild Space from Pandasaurus Games is it's a little comboing game where you play cards, where you take 10 actions throughout the game to either land your spaceship or move your spaceship, and then you're just playing and drawing cards, but it's about the comboing of it that's fun. I think it's really fun, I think it's really compelling. Also, it's good for like 4 or 5 plays, and then it starts getting boring already. At least for me. Everyone's going to be different there, but that's for me. Then we have Lawyer Up. I gotten a few plays of Lawyer Up. Lawyer Up is a game from Rock Banner Games. I'll talk about it more in a review. I want to get through a few more cases first, but, well, there's actually only 2 cases in the base game. What I mean is I've only played the first case a few times, and I want to play the second case before I cover it in a review, but I will be talking about that. We have more plays of Astronauts. Astronauts from Indie Boards and Cards. It's a spiritual successor to Aeon's End, and spiritual successor, it's kind of like Terraforming Mars to Ares Expedition is Aeon's End to Astronauts. It's more accessible, a little streamlined. I'm enjoying it with caveats, but Aeon's End was never a game that I loved, and Astronauts is a game I like more than Aeon's End, but we'll talk about that more in a review. More Kids Chronicles, more The Key, more Seven Wonders Architects, On Tour. We got On Tour. So, sorry, I'm going through a lot of games here. I visited my family in Toronto. We got a lot of games in. I got in a play of On Tour, which you may have seen earlier this week. That was myself playing it with Rena. I got in a play of Tidal Blades, Rise of the Enfolders. One play in so far. I plan on diving into the full, I think there's 6 missions right now that I could play, because it's a prototype. I don't have full access to everything. But what I saw so far, I am enjoying. We got more Wild Space, we have more Rush Out, we have more The Crew, not more again, we have Final Girl. I got into play of Final Girl, just one play. I want to play it a bunch more before I review it, but basically Final Girl is a solo survival game. It's a little bit based on the Hostage Negotiator system, but with more going on to it. They have a bunch of characters in terms of the locations and killers and Final Girls you can be. The Final Girls themselves don't add that much variability, but the killers and the location add a ton of variability. I've only played one game so far, the Poltergeist on the Haunted Mansion, I think it is. I don't remember the names, but the Poltergeist is for sure. I think it's the Haunted Mansion. But overall, I will be playing it more. Right now, it's definitely very luck-prone, but it really does a great job of telling a story, and also, there are decisions to be made. But you are victim to luck for sure, but it tells a fantastic story as you play. I want to play more and mix up some of the experiences, mix up a location and a killer and all that stuff before I review it. But I hope to have a review in the next few weeks, if I can actually get more plays in. We have a few plays of Mini Rogue. That is a solo dungeon crawler. I will talk about it more in a review. We have Atlantis Rising, 2nd edition. I got in another play of that one. I got rid of Atlantis Rising a long time ago, and I kind of had FOMO and got it back. I know we just talked about a large purge that's coming to the house, but purges are not about getting rid of games forever. For me, a part of the experience is, and I have to check my stats on this, I keep stats somewhere, but basically, the way I usually put it is somewhere around 10% or less, meaning I get rid of a lot of games, and then over the years, I'm like, you know what, I'd like to get that one back. And I find it's better to do that than to hold on to every single game in case you want it back. I'm still not sure if Atlantis Rising stays back. The reality is, most of the time, from those 10% that I get back, I would say half of those leave again. Half of those I'm like, yeah, I like it, and I know why I got rid of it. Atlantis Rising, I enjoyed my play. I will be diving into it more and seeing how things go. But no pressure on that one. If I play it enough, I'll review it. I mean, I already played it. I actually have a video comparing it to Pandemic from back in the day. But it's one that ultimately, if I play it more and I get into it more, I'll probably do a dedicated review. If not, you'll see it in the games leaving the collection. I got it back on a whim. It was like, I like it. It's pretty. I also want to try the expansion. I didn't pack the expansion, but now I kind of want to get my hands on it. We will see there. More Yummy Yummy Monster Tummy. More Yummy Yummy Monster Tummy. We got more Astronauts, more The Key, and now we have to go into Memory Zone. More Astronauts, more The Key. Then I played Astronauts with Rena again this morning. What did I play? I'm missing a game. I'm missing a game that I played. I played The Key. Oh my gosh, it's going to bother me. I did not log my most recent plays of games, and now I'm stuck trying to remember what they were. Oh boy. Okay, well, it is what it is. I don't remember, and so I'm not going to spend too much time thinking this over. I'll just lose sleep over this. I hate it when I forget to log plays. I know I played a bunch of games yesterday, and I didn't log any of them. One of them was Astronauts, one of them was The Key, and I know there was at least one more. Whatever, we'll move on from there. So, from there, moving on to the weekend review. The weekend review, all those things. Top's still going. Yeah, and we are done. There we are. Let's give you another spin. These can go for roughly like 8 minutes or so if you get a good spin on it, which is a good timer for a video. So, moving on to weekend review, starting off with Saturday. Saturday was a review for Warpgate. Warpgate is a good game. For right now, I'm holding on to it because I want to try it with the expansion when they eventually have the Game Found campaign for that. It's one that I don't know if it stays in my collection long term or not. It really does come down to the expansion. I believe I gave it a 3 out of 5, a 3.5. Did I give it a 3 or 3.5? This is a problem with those points. Instinctively, I want to say it was a 3.5, but I don't actually remember. No, it was a 3. This is one of the things I don't like about the point system. I should know my reviews, what rating I gave a game, without having to pause and think about it. But either way, for Warpgate is a game that I enjoyed while not loving enough. It's a 4X game. You can check the whole review. I'm intrigued about the expansion, though, because the expansion will potentially fix a bunch of the issues I had with the game. So it falls in the category of a game that for right now is sticking around, but it comes down to the expansion. Similar to Moonacres, which from IV Games. Then later on Saturday, I had a review for Radlands. Radlands was a 4 out of 5. It has the potential to grow, but I don't think so. I think it's going to stay at a 4 out of 5. I really enjoy it. I find it compelling. It has a lot of variability from the bases. The core system just really works well. It's a fun little 2-player game, as you saw already, getting a lot of plays of it in. So yeah, that's Radlands from Roxley Games. Then on Sunday we had Top 100 continued. We had 50 through 41. Speaking of which, I showed off Radlands in that. It's not in my Top 100 because I made my list before I played Radlands, but I think Radlands would probably have made its way into my Top 100 if I were starting from scratch at this point, but I don't know what it would kick out. That's a different conversation. I guess it would kick out number 100, so I have to ignore my answer there. But yeah, that was Radlands. And then other games in that top one, in that 50 to 41, we had Mage Knight, we had Hadrian's Wall. Mage Knight's an interesting one because I don't know if it'll be here next year. I've made a commitment to myself that I have to play Mage Knight at least 3 times in the next year for it to stay. And if I don't, it's gone. I think Mage Knight is fantastic, but speaking of games that should be potentially going in Purges, Mage Knight is one of them. It's not currently in my Purge pile because I like it too much, but it should theoretically be there, especially if I don't get it played. Then on Sunday, that was Sunday. Then on Monday we had the most delayed Kickstarters, basically going over the Kickstarters I've backed and how delayed they are. Just covering just things that have been sitting around and waiting on that have been taking a year, 2, sometimes 3 years past when they were expected to arrive. 2 games I forgot on that list that people pointed out, and to be clear, this was only games I backed. So things like Frosthaven weren't on the list because I didn't back Frosthaven. Things like Kingdom of Death Monster or whatever weren't on the list because I didn't back them. But that said, I did forget 2 games. I forgot Planet Unknown, and I forgot Isophirean Guard because both of those are games I late pledged, so they didn't show up on my list. That I was looking at my Kickstarter games. I didn't even bother looking at GameFound. GameFound's too new for it to have games that are a year plus delayed. But I was looking through my Kickstarter, what I backed, and I forgot about Frosthaven and not Frosthaven. I forgot about Planet Unknown and Isophirean Guard. So you can add those to the list of games that would be pretty delayed. Then on Tuesday we had 3 videos as usual. Tuesday we had a review for Seven Wonders Architects. I gave that one a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I found it simple, enjoyable, but also light, and for me, unnecessary in my collection. I'm happy it exists for those that it works as a gateway experience. I already think of Seven Wonders as a gateway experience. Then later on Tuesday, we had a review for On Tour, playthrough and review. I played On Tour with my wife. We didn't actually give a score for that one. I don't know what her score would be. My score for On Tour is a 3.5. I like it. It's accessible. I don't love it. It's a 3.5. It's a really enjoyable game that I'm happy to dive into, and we have fun playing it. But that is On Tour. Then later on Tuesday, we had a review for Wild Space. That's another 3.5, although this one, this is an interesting conversation. Like, what I rate a game is not inherently related to whether I keep it. Whether I keep it is usually not attached to the experience I had. It's usually attached to the experience I had, plus where I figure I will play it or not. So, for example, Wild Space is a game that I don't think I'll play as much, despite being a 3.5. On Tour, I'll play it with Rena and enjoy it, and it's the kind of game we pull out and just play. We like our roll and rights, so they have a special place. And yeah, either way, both of my 3.5s, one staying and has been there for a while. The other one is, well, leaving. I guess we'll talk about that. But either way, that is Wild Space. Then on Wednesday we had top 100 games continued, 40 through 31. Other notable highlights in there, we had Parks, which I want to play with the Nightfall expansion, which people say makes the game much better. We'll see. I mean, I will play it at some point with the Nightfall expansion. Then we have Food Chain Magnet, which saw a large drop from last year. Food Chain Magnet was in my top 10 last year, I believe. Yeah, it was my top 10 last year, and it dropped to I don't remember what number, but I think like 38 or something like that. It was high. It was in my 40 through 31, so somewhere in there. But it's a great game. It's just a very thinky, and it's a game that I'm not always in the mood to play. Now I have the catch-up mechanism, the catch-up mechanism. I have not played it though, so we'll see how that affects or alters my experience. But when I get to it eventually. But from there we had that was Wednesday. Then we had on Thursday. Thursday was 2 videos. First of all, we had Miniature Market and Asmodee. So basically, Miniature Market was purchased by Asmodee a few months ago, and we found out about it because Embracer Group, I think this was called Embracer Group, I think so, just bought, bought Asmodee. So we found out during that process that Miniature Market had been purchased, and I did a video covering that. And now, I did say during that video that I will respond to comments to a degree in the Week in Review. I can't fully respond to comments because there were a lot of comments, but I will tackle two or three general points that people talked about as some general comments. Now, people who agreed with me, I'm not really talking about those comments as much. To be frank, it's less interesting to say, hey, I agree with you, Alex. Thank you. I appreciate it. But in terms of comments that disagreed with me, the general video of Miniature Market and Asmodee, first of all, apologies for jumping into it with no introduction of what's going on. I didn't talk about who Asmodee is. I didn't talk about what Miniature Market was. I really just talked about it as if people know what's going on, which was my bad. I should be a little bit more clear. Sometimes I forget that I need to talk about things from a stance of what's going on, as opposed to, hey, I know you know what's going on, so let me tell you more. So that's, first of all, apologies there. The general concept, in case you missed it, is Asmodee, large corporate overlord that has been buying a lot of game companies for the past several years, and Miniature Market is a retail store, an online retail store. That I think they have a retail location. I'm not actually sure, but they're one of the big online board game stores, along with Gamers, along with Cool Stuff Inc., along with I mean, there's other ones. Depends what you purchase from, but Miniature Market is one of the ones I personally buy from a lot, along with Game Nerds, and they were purchased by Asmodee. So a large corporate overlord that's buying a lot of the manufacturing and production and all those game companies, they bought a game store at the same time. Not at the same time, but you know what I mean. And so there's a lot of hubbub about that because people don't love Asmodee. People have a very strong, Asmodee's buying everything, they're going to take over everything stance on things. And now they're taking over a game store too. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. And I was pushing back against that primarily from a stance of, in my video, a lot of people were like, I'm switching away my purchases from Miniature Market, even though they hadn't even noticed any changes in the past several months. So it was like more of I'm punishing Miniature Market because Asmodee owns them, as opposed to like, oh, well, I've noticed a weakening in the service, if that makes sense. And I was pushing back against that, which brings us to the two general notes I will tackle in this semi-response section to that. The first is that one of the general trends I saw is I think a lot of people thought that I was saying, oh, monopolies are not bad and large corporations buying things up are not bad. I don't think that's true at all. I'm not for the general acquisition Asmodee has of everything, not in the slightest. In fact, I'm also a drop wary of what it means for the future. I think the bigger point that I was going for personally, that I was trying to go for, is first of all around the idea that you're going to inherently stop buying from Miniature Market just because Asmodee owns it, as opposed to actual bad thing that Asmodee is doing to Miniature Market or hurting the service. Meaning the general larger stance of just being against it is more what I was pushing back against, as well as the lack of, okay, great, I understand that a monopoly could theoretically happen, but we're so far removed from an actual monopoly, at least as of right now. Like, I had several comments from the well-written comments that cover the details of what happens to certain systems, what happens to the gaming industry, the video game industry, what has happened to different segments of a population as things become corporatized or owned by more people. I think the potential for that is there, sure. But I think we're very, very far removed, at least right now. Board games, partially and thanks to Kickstarter, are a very decentralized system where you can buy a lot of the big people, as Asmodee has done, and still come nowhere close to controlling any large segment of the market. Is there a possibility that that will drift further and further towards a monopoly? Yes, I just don't think we're at all close to that. I think people are screaming the sky is falling, as opposed to actually seeing the sky fall. So first of all, that's the general response to, I understand the potential danger of an Asmodee, while thinking that we are very, very far removed, and I just don't care enough right now. at least based on things like them buying Miniature Market and having no change to the actual quality, at least right now. The second thing is a lot of people brought on, like a lot of comments talked about Miniature Market, talked about Asmodee being the talked about the concept of Asmodee being the downfall of Fantasy Flight. Meaning, part of what I did in the video is I talked about what Asmodee has or hasn't done, and what has or hasn't been a problem. Because I don't think they've actually done that much that's bad. The one thing I did talk about is the fact that they have instituted a parts replacement policy, which is very anti-consumer. That one I'm against. That's like one thing that they've done as part of their general trend of acquiring everything. I agree, I don't like that at all. The second thing that people brought up that I disagree with, we'll talk about it, is Fantasy Flight, and whether Asmodee buying Fantasy Flight has been the downfall of Fantasy Flight. A lot of people seem to think it is, and while I'm not prepared to overly debate that right here in this video, because it's not a debate, I'm just talking to the camera, you can't respond inherently, at the same time, I think that there's a strong argument to be made, at least for myself. I very much believe that Fantasy Flight was heading downhill before Asmodee acquired them. I do not think Asmodee killed Fantasy Flight. I think Asmodee cemented the direction that Fantasy Flight was headed as a company. So, and this is something you can Google, by the way. You can Google this fairly easily, Fantasy Flight, Asmodee, whatever, or Fantasy Flight going into decline. The conversation around Fantasy Flight going into decline was in existence well before Asmodee purchased them. What I can't prove is did Asmodee make it worse or not. But I can certainly show that there is a lot of there has been a lot of conversation around Fantasy Flight declining well before Asmodee purchased them up. Things like they came out with their X-Wing line. Like a big conversation I know that's happened is they came out with their X-Wing line that was so popular that their other lines suffered. And this is a general problem Fantasy Flight has always had, that they lean heavily into the lines that they have that work, the product lines they have that do well. They double down and triple down and sell a ton of that as much as possible, and then let everything else fall to the wayside. That is a track record they have always had. Combined with the fact that they lost their Warhammer license around that time. Before Asmodee bought them, they lost the license to Warhammer, which led to them having a whole bunch of titles no longer around. Warhammer the card game, gone. Chaos in the Old World, gone. Forbidden Stars, gone. Horus Heresy, gone. They had a ton of games around the Warhammer IP that were gone. And then they had internal problems left, right, and center. If you look up reviews from Glassdoor from well before Asmodee bought them, they had a lot of internal issues and a lot of problems going on. Fantasy Flight was a huge behemoth of a company for a long time that was taken very seriously and well respected, and the problems that they had were very present and getting worse and worse before Asmodee purchased them. Can I say for sure Asmodee didn't make things worse? No, I can't. And to be fair, by the way, Fantasy Flight still puts out great games, just very differently than the way they used to. So like the Marvel Champions line is fantastic, but they've leaned even more heavily into their IPs, which is a direction they were going before Asmodee purchased them, but they have certainly leaned into that to the exclusion of other games after. So it's a longer conversation, it's a debatable conversation for sure, it is debatable, but I personally don't think that Asmodee is the source of Fantasy Flight's decline. I think they leaned heavily in the direction that Fantasy Flight was already going. That was a very long conversation, but I said I'd respond to some comments, so I wanted to respond to those general concepts around those companies, around that video. Which brings us to later on Thursday. Later on Thursday, I did an unboxing for Zia, Legends of a Drift System, and I'm not going to heavily talk about that because we're already running short on time on this. Then on Friday, I continued the top 100, specifically 30 to 21. This one was again with Devin. Devin showed up again for this. Some highlights there. Mind MGMT was in there. Amazing game, absolutely loving it. As well as Bruges, which is still a fantastic game that has been in my top 100 before, and will be in my top 100 again. Love Bruges from Stefan Feld. That's the one that they're reprinting as Hamburg. Then on Saturday, today we have two reviews going up. We have Kids Chronicles, Quest for the Moonstones, as well as Megaman Adventures. So both those will be going up if you are interested in my opinions on those and how they play and whether you should pick them up. I mean, that depends on you. Just you watch the review and you decide. And then later this week we'll have a few things. We have on Monday a 2022 Kickstarter list. So a lot of Kickstarters that will be coming out in 2022. This is a two-part series. I'll have one this week and one next week. But if you want to see a ton of stuff, there is a ton of stuff. A ton of stuff coming, a lot of exclusive information as well. I don't even know how I'm going to film this. There's so much stuff going on. I'm going to have like 70 open tabs and probably take a break or two because there's a lot of information. And that's with me splitting it up into two. Then past that, we will be having the last two videos in the top 100. One for sure is going up this week. I think both are going up this week. So top 100 for 2021 comes to a close shortly enough. And then lastly, games on the table. We have Mercurial, which is a prototype that I hope to dive into shortly. I don't know why the letters here are upside down. If we switch it there, the letters are not upside down. That's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, one box size upside down. This is a prototype. I'll be diving into this one. We also have Dom Pierre, this wine themed game. I'll be diving into that. 2 prototypes, as well as Small Islands from Lucky Duck that I want to dive into. And finally, in terms of games I've actually played, Whistle Mountain, doing my top 100. Part of doing my top 100 has made me want to play certain games again and again and again that I love and I don't play as often as I'd like. Whistle Mountain is one of those games. I haven't played this one that much. I might have 7 or 8 plays under my belt. I don't know exactly. Not nearly enough time for how good a game this is. It's a phenomenal game. Really enjoying it from Bezier Games. It's just a mess, but it's a delightful mess, and it really speaks to the kind of things I like in games. And that is it. That is the Week in Review. Longer than I thought it would be, because despite we had a very low news section, so I thought it would be light. But then I guess we spent an extra 4 or 5 minutes in the whole Asmodee response thingy, so that added up and compensated. In any case, until next time, we are headed into holiday season. We actually are in holiday season, so I probably will have very few people watching this compared to usual because you're all busy, which is a good thing. So you do you. Spend time with your family. If you're watching this, you're already failing a bit, I guess. No, you're good. You're good. I like when you watch my videos. It's good. It's good. But anyways, until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and have a good one.